Hello, this is a special bonus critical skills component on how to create an outline for your essay. So in my experience, most students don't bother to create an outline for their essay because they just see it as extra work. I'm here to tell you that if you do it correctly, creating an outline for your essay actually saves you work. Or if it doesn't save you work, it saves you time and energy and stress. You see, this may come as a surprise to you, but writing is hard, really hard. Writing, good writing, writing at this level is one of the hardest things there is. That's because writing isn't just one task. It's actually a whole bunch of tasks. Writing is coming up with ideas, constructing arguments, coming up with words to express what you want to say, putting them together in grammatically correct sentences, organizing what you want to say, and more, all at the same time. This is why writer's block can be such a problem, because your brain is getting overwhelmed with having to do all of these different things at the same time. The purpose of doing an essay outline is to break all of that up into a series of discrete steps so that you're not coming up with ideas at the same time as you're thinking about organization, at the same time as you're thinking about coming up with the right words to say, and so on. So let's begin. Okay, so what you see here is an example of a standard formal essay outline with introduction, body, and conclusion. Most of you have probably seen something like this before. I won't spend very much time on it. As you can see, the way the formal outline works is it proceeds from wholes to parts, or you can think of it as proceeding from the more general to the more specific. So you have your major divisions, which are indicated by Roman numerals, which are then, in each one of these major divisions is broken down into smaller divisions, which are indicated by letters. And oops, why are you moving? I don't know why you're moving. And if you need to break those minor divisions down into even smaller divisions, you can use regular numerals, okay? So as you can see, this is a way of organizing your thoughts in terms of what you have to do and what you have to do the things that you have to do. Now, it's not necessary to do a formal outline of this kind. The approach that I'm going to be showing you will be more of a rough outline, which when you're finished, you can turn into a formal outline like this, but it's probably not necessary to. Now, there are other ways to do outlines. You go on the internet, you can see a bunch of them. One common way is the bullet point method, where you have your thesis, topic sentences for your paragraphs, and basically the things that you want to say or need to do are in bullet points. The method that we're going to use is going to end up looking a lot like this. A whole other way of doing an outline is called the mind map. With the mind map, you start off with a blank page, and then you write your thesis down in the middle of the page and put a circle around it. And then, oops, and then okay, this every time, yeah, why is it sticking? I don't want it to stick. And then is the things that you need to do to support your thesis branch off from there, and then things branch off from there, and so on. Some people find the mind map approach to be very useful. It can work as a brainstorming method. We're not going to be doing that here. If you want to learn more about it, there's plenty of places where you can research it on the internet. Okay, I'm going to try to move to the next slide without my computer doing anything weird. Wish me luck. Okay, so let's go back to this slide. Okay, this slide is an example of an essay outline, and it uses the standard essay structure for academic papers. The standard structure, you're probably familiar with it, it's introduction, body, and conclusion. Most of the work that you do in the essay is going to be in the body. Most of the text is going to be in the body. The introduction and conclusion are usually just one paragraph each. But it's useful to break it up into introduction, body, and conclusion because each one of those different parts has different purposes. And I'm going to talk about those now. Okay, beginning with the introduction. The purpose of the introduction is to prepare your reader for what they're going to read in the body of your essay. I like to think of essay writing as the opposite of fiction writing. When you're writing fiction, it's all about suspense. Your reader isn't supposed to know what's going to happen next. But when you're writing an essay, you want your reader to know what's going to happen next. If your reader knows what to expect, then they're going to be more prepared for it. If they're going to be more prepared for it, they're going to understand it better. This is the purpose of the introduction. Everything that you do in the introduction is toward the purpose of helping the reader to understand what they're going to read in the body of your essay, and there not being any surprises. Normally this will contain your essay topic and your thesis. Your topic will probably consist of about one sentence. Your thesis or thesis statement should consist of only one sentence. It can also contain background information. It should also contain a summary of your argument. And it's normally one paragraph in length, although for longer essays, it can be more than one. For your essay, the remarks that I'm making, that I just made, pertain to the introduction for university level essays in general. For yours in particular, we definitely want it to be just one paragraph, and we also have more specific expectations about what needs to be in it, which I will get to in a moment, after I make a couple of other points. So it's common for when you're writing an essay to start it off with some sort of vague, philosophical sounding general statement. I mean, like a parody of it might be, since the beginning of time, people have worried about the impact of technology on their lives. That's a bit of parody because it's obviously not true. For one thing, people haven't been around since the beginning of time. And for another thing, people probably didn't start thinking about the impact of technology until, I don't know, maybe the Industrial Revolution. I mean, people have had technology for as long as there have been people, but I don't know if they worried about its impact on their lives. However, okay, I have seen often, quite often, I've seen people start essays with sentences very much like that. Please don't do that. It's vague, it's pretentious, it's often inaccurate, and most of all, it's unnecessary. You have a limited number of words to work with in your essay, and I want you to think of your words as your resources. You have a job to do in your essay, and the words are your resources to get that job done. specifically the job that you have is to support your thesis or to make a persuasive case for your thesis. So any words that you use in your essay which don't advance that goal of making a persuasive case for your thesis are wasted words. And that, I think, is the best reason not to start your essay with some sort of hook like this. I've seen people waste like half a paragraph or even half a page before they even get to the thesis statement, before they even get to what text that they're going to talk about. So those people, they just wasted half a page that they could have used to make their essay better. Therefore, what I recommend is for you to begin, you can just start off your essay with whatever it is that you're going to say. You can start off your essay with your thesis statement. You can start off your essay by introducing the texts. What I don't want to see is some sort of vague discussion of the topic that's supposed to act as some sort of hook. Another piece of advice for writing essays in general, not just the essays in this course, but in all your courses, and in fact, anytime you have to write an essay where you are going to be doing a formal introduction, I strongly recommend that you write the introduction last. Why? Well, because if you write the introduction last, that makes the introduction very easy to write. Remember, the introduction is a summary of what's going to come next. Summary of what's going to be in the body of your essay. But you can't be sure what's going to be in the body of your essay until after you've written the body of your essay. So it only makes sense to do the introduction last. If you do put off the introduction until last, you can write it almost mechanically, like you hardly have to think about it at all. You just have to make sure it fulfills certain requirements, that it has certain contents. Let's talk about those now. Another thing that your introductory paragraph needs to contain is your thesis statement. This is very important. Your thesis statement is, after all, what your essay is about. So you tell us what the two works you're going to be talking about are about, and then you tell us what your work, i.e. your essay, is going to be about. Since the whole purpose of the essay is to support the conclusion or thesis, you might find that I sometimes say conclusion instead of thesis. That's because in logic and argumentation talk, we speak of premises and conclusions, whereas in essay writing talk, we use the words thesis and reasons, but the terms are interchangeable. So when I say conclusion, I mean thesis. If I say premises, I mean reasons. So don't get confused there. Okay, so anyway, the whole purpose of your essay is to support your conclusion / thesis, so it's very important that you tell your reader upfront what that's going to be. It's also very important, by the way, that it be clear which sentence in your introduction is your thesis statement. Another common mistake that I see is that there are 2, maybe 3 different sentences in the introduction, each one of which could be the thesis statement, but it's not obvious which one. So you're going to need to flag your thesis statement in some unambiguous way. The easiest way to do that is to use language like, this essay will attempt to show that, followed by your thesis statement. Or, in this essay, I will attempt to prove that, followed by your thesis statement. You can write, my thesis is, or my thesis will be, but that's not very good style. We'd prefer that you not do it so boldly and blatantly. I mean, you can, but it's better style to put it in terms of, this is what I'm trying to prove. There are other ways of making your thesis statement obvious. Some instructors will tell you that your thesis statement should be the last sentence in your opening paragraph, and that sets it apart. I'm not really advising you to do that. I'm not really advising you to do that because in addition to your thesis statement, we want to see in your introduction a brief summary of how you're going to support your thesis. This is going to be a brief summary of your argument, usually about one sentence per argument, although it's quite possible to put, to summarize more than one argument in a single sentence. It's also fine to use one sentence for each one of your arguments. It just needs to be clear what you're doing. Good essay writing involves always making it clear to your reader what you're doing, but it doesn't usually involve making it so clear to your reader that it's in baby talk. It's not going to be like, my thesis will be, my reasons will be. That doesn't read very well. It's not very good style. It's not wrong, but it's also not good. Finally, you may need to include in your introductory paragraph some amount of background information that the reader will need to understand your thesis or the reasons for your thesis. If they need a lot of background information, then this background information shouldn't be in your introductory paragraph. It should be in a whole other paragraph. But if you need one or two sentences of background information, that should also go in your introductory paragraph. Okay, that's the introduction. The next part of your essay is called the body, and this is the part that does all of the work. Your body contains your points, your arguments, your explanations, basically anything that you need in order to support your thesis. In the body of your essay, you're going to be developing some number of points, and each one of those points, you're going to spend about one paragraph developing each one of those points. However, there is no correct number of paragraphs, and there is no correct number of points to develop in your essay. The body of your essay, the correct length for the body of your essay is however long it needs to be in order to do the job of supporting your thesis. Each one of your paragraphs, the correct length is however long it needs to be in order to develop the point that you're making in a way that's sufficiently clear that the reader can understand it and hopefully find it compelling. Moving on to the conclusion. The conclusion, like the introduction, is normally going to be one paragraph. The purpose of the conclusion is to tie everything together. It is to tie your argument together so that your reader can see how all of the parts fit together and how your thesis follows from what you've said. So your conclusion is going to contain another summary of your argument, but not the same summary of your argument as in the introduction. Not the same summary because the conclusion serves a different purpose. Look at it this way. The body of your essay might be several pages long. it might not be possible for your reader to synthesize all of that information. It might not be possible for them to see how all of that fits together and leads to your thesis. So in the conclusion, you sum up what you've said in order to make the connections between the points clear, and in order to show how, when you put these points together, your thesis, the thing that you're arguing for, is what follows. That is the purpose of the conclusion. A mistake that some students make with the conclusion is that they try to squeeze in some additional point. They try to add some moral, perhaps, that isn't something that reflects the body of the essay. Don't do that. Don't do that. There isn't supposed to be anything in your conclusion that wasn't in the body of your essay. Your conclusion functions essentially as a summary. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Well, let's move on to the method for generating an essay outline. This isn't just a method for generating an essay outline. It's kind of a method for generating a whole essay. You'll see what I mean as we go through it. So here on this slide, you can see the steps. It's a 6-step process. I'm going to read each one of these out now. But you're going to get a better idea of how they work when we actually go through them. The first step is to write down your thesis. You can write it down by hand, you can type it into your computer, doesn't really matter. You can copy paste it from somewhere else if you want. After you've done that, you ask yourself, what do I need to do in order to support my thesis? And then you write down everything that you can think of that will help you to support your thesis. Again, there's no correct number of points here. What you're doing is you're brainstorming as many thoughts or arguments or ideas as you can, all toward the end of persuading the reader of your thesis. And you write each one of them down in point form. When you have come up with as many as you can, or what you judge to be an adequate number of points, go back over them. This is step 3. You go back over them, you review your ideas, and you cut out the ones that you don't need. Remember, you have limited space in your essay, and you have to develop each one of these points in a way that's going to make it clear and compelling. So you're not going to have room to develop 10 or 12 points. In an essay of this length, probably 3 or 4 is about all you're going to have time to develop. Is all that you're going to have space to develop. 3 or 4 is probably how many you're going to have the word length to develop. So you cut out the ones that you don't need. The ones that you don't need, you know, the weakest ones. You prune it down to your strongest ones, but enough that you think that you will make a compelling case for your thesis. The 4th step is to take each one of these ideas and basically do for it what you initially did for your thesis. That is, ask yourself what you need to do in order to make it work. So for each one of these points, ask yourself, is this a claim that needs to be supported by other claims? Is it a point that needs to be explained? Is it a thought that needs to be fleshed out? Does it need to be backed up with evidence? Whatever the point needs for you to make it work, write that down underneath it, again, in point form. And you do this for each one of the points that you've decided that you're going to use. So after you have filled out, after you have fleshed out all of your points, again, in point form, decided everything that you need to go in your essay, you move on to step 5. Step 5 is you decide what order to put your ideas in. So in deciding what order to put your points in, you have to think about it in terms of what's going to make a clear and compelling case for your thesis. What does your reader need to know in order to understand what you have to say? So if your reader needs to understand point B before they can understand point A, then obviously you need to put point B in your essay first. Sometimes you're going to want to go from simple to complex, and sometimes you're going to want to go from complex to simple. The way you go from complex to simple is you will take a complicated point and then you will unpack it into a series of smaller points. Sometimes you will start off with the simpler points and you will build the more complex points on top of them. Again, there is no single correct way to organize your essay. The correct way to organize your essay is whatever way is going to do the best job of making your reader, one, understand what you want them to understand, and two, see how your thesis follows from the things that you've said. Step 6 is a review step. You read over everything that you've done and you ask yourself some questions. Does this make sense? Have I left anything out? Is there something else that I need to do in order to make this work? If necessary, you revise. You can add stuff, you can cut things out, you can rearrange, you can rephrase, and so on. Once you've done this, you're going to have a page or a couple of pages filled in with thoughts in point form, and you're going to have them in the order that you want to say them in your essay. So you can then take this and you can flesh out each one of these points, or sometimes you can just take your points and sort of rewrite them into sentence and paragraph form, and thereby turn your outline into an essay. That's how I usually do it. When I was an undergrad, what I would do is I would come up with the thoughts that I needed to come up with for my essay. I would write them all down. I would decide what order to put them in. Remember, they're all in point form here. And once I'd come up with all of them, I decided what order to put them in, I would just go through them and rewrite them into sentence and paragraph form. And normally that would give me a good first draft of an essay. But we don't have time to do all of that. I just wanted to give you an idea of how the process works. I hope you found it helpful. Okay. Bye.